Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to City Views. I'm so glad you're taking the time to join us here today. My name is Rebecca Naker, and I represent Ward 2 on the St. Paul City Council. And I am thrilled today to have as my guest Senior Commander Jeremy Ellison, who's going to be talking with us about public safety in general and specifically in Ward 2. Before we get into that, just a reminder that we've sort of changed the way that these City Views work. Instead of trying to introduce you to the widest range of people and all of the different jobs and positions within City Hall, I've decided this year to focus a little bit more on the people and projects that most directly affect and impact Ward 2. So we will switch it up from month to month, but we'll also likely be inviting back guests from some of our departments, like the police department, where you often have questions and where their work really directly impacts our neighborhoods. We've also tacked on an additional 15 minutes just at the end of the presentation, at the end of the interview. I'll say goodbye to Commander Ellison at that point, and then if you have questions about anything related to the ward that don't have to do with public safety, that'll be a time to have that conversation, and I'll make sure to stick around and answer as many questions as I can at that time. One thing that hasn't changed, this is meant to be interactive. So if you have a question for Commander Ellison about public safety, or if you have a question not related that you want me to address at the end, you can just type that in the comments right below this feed, and we will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. And just a reminder that we ask that questions be submitted in a spirit of curiosity and respect. This is not a gotcha kind of interview. So with that, welcome, Commander Ellison. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to actually get to see you. Often we are emailing and we are texting and we're talking about things going on, but to see your face is great.
Absolutely.
First question, I'm curious, and I think listeners might be too. What is the job like day to day as a commander? I think people have in mind what sort of a police officer does, but I know that your job is slightly different from that. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I've risen up ranks, I've realized that police work is not something that I'm doing every day. So, but my day job is a little bit different every day, and I do enjoy that. The variety is nice. It's part of the reason why I became a police officer, is just to have a little bit different variety every day. But on paper, schedules Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. However, I rarely work just those hours. I'm often either here a little bit early, staying a little bit late, or in the weekends too. But as the district, Central District Senior Commander, I am responsible for all the police services that happen in the district, which includes North End, Downtown, West 7th Street, and also West Side. I do have 3 commanders who work for me. A patrol commander, investigative commander, and then one specifically for the downtown beat. And then I also have 15 sergeants and right now roughly 99 police officers. So, quite a big staff, but for me, it's kind of nice to be back here in Central District because this is actually where I started when I was a brand new officer back in 2000. So to be now have risen up and be in charge of the district is kind of a great honor and fun for me to be back here and back in the neighborhoods that I know. So it's fun.
No, it's great to have gotten to work with you as the downtown commander and then now as the senior commander. I really feel like we have the great people in the Central District, I will say. So is most of the job then in terms of in the office versus out in the neighborhood or going to community meetings? I mean, how do the actual activities break down?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm behind this desk more than I want to be. I have to force myself. I actually block off time on my calendar now to actually get out into the community. COVID makes that a little bit more difficult too, but I still enjoy, getting downtown, walking through the skyways, driving up Rice Street, going over to the West Side, just being in the neighborhoods and getting a sense of what's going on because I can read the reports and see the summaries from my sergeants, but when I actually get time to go out there and talk to people and hear stories and talk to the residents and talk to businesses and get a better understanding of what's going on, it helps me feel like I'm more in tune and in a better position to lead the district.
Yeah. No, I think I see you out and about a lot. So, and I completely understand the feeling of being a little bit isolated in these pandemic times. So tell me a little bit more about shifting gears a little bit to the public safety challenges on the ground right now. We know we're seeing an increase in lots of kinds of crime, not just in St. Paul, but all across the country. Can you talk a little bit about what you see as the biggest public safety challenges in the whole city right now?
Yeah, I think, the biggest challenges that we have right now, is really gun violence. And then homelessness is another thing that I'll touch on. But as far as gun violence, those two things are really what I spend the majority of my time working on and having my staff work on. We're fortunate in St. Paul to have such a great gang and gun unit that really is involved, and we have a lot of officers, sergeants in there that do a lot of great work every day. And we're finding that a lot of our gun crimes are being perpetrated by a few known offenders and what we would call frequent offenders. When I looked at the data in the entire city, our officers recovered 660 guns last year, 2020. That's nearly 2 guns per day. I remember when I first came on the job, it was a really big deal if you found a gun. If you did a traffic stop, you jumped out on somebody and you found a gun, it was a big thing, and everybody would be talking about it. Cops would come stop by the traffic stop and they'd look at the gun, and it was like I said, a big deal. And now it seems like our officers are doing that. It's unfortunately way too common. And it's really, I don't know what all the reasoning is behind it, but clearly people are feeling very emboldened to be able to carry these guns around. And unfortunately, a lot of them are younger, and they make decisions. And when they have access to those guns and they use them, we unfortunately see the tragedies that unfold. So. Gun violence obviously is also, one of the top 3 priorities of Chief Axtell. So it's something that's really important. And I know it's one of those things that, affects everybody. And even if you're not the one necessarily, if you just live in the neighborhood and hear gunshots, things like that, it really totally affects your life. And those are the things that, as the police department, that's one of our challenges is really addressing that. So. And then with respect to homelessness too, I've been very fortunate to have worked on the city's unsheltered work group that's chaired by Deputy Mayor Tincher. We meet several times a week. We talk about the current situation, what's working, what's working, coming up with actionable plans to help get those who are in need off the street. And Councilmember Naker, I know you do a lot of work on that stuff too, and part of several meetings on that topic as well. But as we all know, this has been an extremely complex year. We did see an unprecedented rise in the number of homeless encampments and unsheltered individuals living in our city, and I think throughout the area really. But we spent a lot of time, you and I did, especially in town, working on some solutions, and we really wanted to find ways of, how do we address this problem with criminalizing homelessness? And I think we were very successful in that approach. It took time, it wasn't as fast as coming in and making arrests, but I think we did things the right way. And we spent several weeks really just engaging with people. And it wasn't just the police, it was city staff, DSI, mayor's office, all of our outreach partners, as well as our coast unit and the embedded social workers that work there. It was really a team collaborative effort. And I think because we did that, we were really successful. And I know that, the team continues to work collaboratively on solutions. And we also recognize that, we need to not only focus on the symptoms of the problem, but also really get at some of the underlying root causes. So I'm really just proud of the work that the city is doing. I think, I don't know obviously what everybody throughout the country is doing, but I'm very familiar with what our folks are doing here in the city. And to be part of the team and watch the work that gets done is it's fun, and I think it's the right way to go, and really seeing a lot of people get the help that they need and get on a path towards permanent housing. So.
Yeah, no, I've been really grateful for your collaboration in helping address homelessness, and the way that you and your team have drawn a really bright line between criminal activity and being homeless. It's not a crime to be homeless. It's not a crime to be outside or to not have been able to shower. It's not right. And I think those sorts of delineations that you've really made beautifully have been key to our approach in helping people, regain their dignity and get to a safer place. So I appreciate that. I want to go back to the gun violence though, Commander. That statistic about 660 guns that you mentioned, and then when did you start, and when are you comparing that when it was a big deal to find a gun? When was that?
Yeah, so it came on in 2000, and I don't know how many guns the city recovered back then, but I know it was nowhere near what we are now. So, but this phenomenon of increased gun recoveries, I have to look at the data a little more closely, but I would say it's been the past 2-3 years of steady increases. I don't think I have. Actually, I do have the number. So for number of guns recovered in 2019 was 613. So I don't have any data beyond 19 now, but I can just from my personal experience, it seems to have continued to rise.
And I know that nobody has the one answer to this, but from your perspective, I mean, the gun violence is absolutely one of my biggest concerns. It's something I know that the entire city council hears about on a daily basis. I have 4 emails in my inbox this morning about shots fired in different parts of my ward. I admit it makes me feel frustrated. It makes me feel angry. It's threatening, not knowing what to be able to do about that and how to help my constituents. And I know you feel the same. What do you think is sort of at the root of the increase? And is it a matter of stronger gun laws, which I know are mostly the province of the state? I don't think that's something that the city has power over. Or what can your team, do to prevent these things from occurring rather than just responding after they've occurred? Or is the focus on response and enforcement?
No, I think it really is.
A lot of questions.
Yeah, no, I think, there's a lot of complex issues that go on with gun violence, but I think gun laws are important. Enforcing them is important. But honestly, I think the prevalence of how many guns are available right now is really just part of the problem. I know there's also a phenomenon of what they call ghost guns, which are people being able to buy parts of the internet and make their own guns that don't even have serial numbers on them, and all of these things just play into that. I think the folks that are carrying these guns feel that they need to carry them for protection, and all of that just kind of leads into the cycle of violence. And as far as what we can or should be doing, I think the police department obviously have a role in that, and we're doing that. Like I talked about our gang and gun unit just the other day. I was just sending a note to the commander, just thanking them for their work, because we've been having some challenges up on Rice Street, and they've been doing a lot of extra work. And they made an arrest last week of a known person who had actually been shot, but they were investigating this person again for some drug dealing up there and arrested him with another gun. And so those are things that I think we can do. But, the other things that I'm hopeful for is the work that I've, been watching happen with especially my time downtown, but even now as we start to expand the Community Ambassadors Initiative, where we see those folks out well, it's not every day. We'd love them to be out every day, but we are out making those connections, because a lot of times these folks need those mentors and those relationships. And I've talked to Joel Franklin at length about it, and I can't say enough good things about the good work that those youth workers, for lack of a better term, but the ambassadors are doing. I really appreciate the partnership we have with them, and I think to solve the gun violence problem, it's not going to be just police. We're not going to arrest our way out of it. It's going to be a community led initiative. It's going to be the ambassadors and everything coming together and focusing on all different complex issues. And it may be a different solution for each individual person that thinks they need to carry a gun. It may be different things for different neighborhoods, but ultimately, like I said, it is a priority, because like you said, you get those emails, I get them as well. And it's like, I feel terrible knowing that some family is sitting in their house and having to listen to these gunshots. And I think, we will continue to work at, bringing those folks to justice, but it's not, unfortunately, it's a time consuming process, and it's not something that we can do overnight.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I'm noticing a lot of questions coming up in the chat, so I'm just going to turn to some of those, even though I have more for you. But I can talk to you anytime. So I want to first on the questions we're getting. So one question came in just about the. Actually, I'm I'm going to hold off on the carjackings because I have separate questions for you about carjackings, which we're hearing a lot about. But a question about what involvement does St. Paul Police have with the Community First Public Safety Commission? This is the commission that the mayor has established and the council supports to look at responses to lower priority 911 calls and see which can be answered by people other than police. The question is, who is representing St. Paul Police on that commission? Do you know that, Commander?
I'm not sure who is representing the department. I know Deputy Chief Matt Topol has weekly meetings with the Community First Public Safety Group, but I do believe that this commission is something separate of that. So I'm not sure if he's going to continue in that role or if that's been assigned to somebody else.
Okay, we can look into that. Actually, we after the chat, we can put up. I think the entire commission is publicly available, so we can find out. But that's a great question. And then a question about reading a lot on Facebook about crime being reported on neighborhood boards, and a lot of reports shared from the Citizen app and people who listen into the police scanners. I'm just reading the question since it's a long one. I want to make sure I get it right. It isn't always clear if these are actual crimes that are reported multiple times, or from folks who have some interest in sensationalizing or pushing an agenda. Does this make it feel more dangerous than it really is? So what's your recommendation then, Commander, on how to stay informed about what's really happening, apart from what people are talking about on Facebook or Nextdoor or some of these other social media platforms?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that's something that I have really struggled with as the downtown beat commander, especially when, we were having those issues in Lower Town, is just trying to get that message out there that, St. Paul is a safe city. And yes, we have, crimes that happen here, and that's a big deal, and we want to focus on that and deal with it. But I think it's really important to kind of differentiate the point about those apps. And in fact, I was actually just answered an email from a community member last week on there was this shooting that happened. Well, it turns out that the app said it happened downtown. It didn't happen downtown, it was somewhere else, and that app's putting it on the map in downtown. So, and the other thing that we found too is a lot of times what the app is reporting on is what's going out over the police radio. And just because somebody calls something in doesn't mean that the crime actually happened. And so it's really kind of a difficult thing. I understand the need or the want or the desire to get that information out there as soon as possible. But at the same time, oftentimes we go and we investigate, maybe got called to a, who knows, it was some crime that happened. And after we investigate, we find out, it was actually not a crime. The owner locked themselves out of their car or out of their house and to break the window to get in, or things like that. So sometimes I think those apps do lead to a little misinformation. I think the Central District, and I know all three districts do this, we do have monthly community meetings, and we are sharing crime statistics and crime data, even down to the neighborhood level. And so that's what I would recommend is, just reaching out to your, if it's us here in Central District, reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with the right people. We can keep you informed on things that are happening. Because it is important to know the facts and not just, I think we read things on the internet once in a while. It does seem to be more of it seems dangerous when the reality is, it's not quite as dangerous as it seems.
And Commander, is there a place where you can get sort of objective information, just the data on 911 calls? I know that's public information. Is that something, if someone, obviously not in the moment necessarily, but is there a place where someone can go and look up what have been the calls in my neighborhood, or, what was that I heard last night, apart from contacting individual officers? Yes,
I believe so. So I know the Ramsey County Emergency Communications Center had a project going where they were going to post both police and fire actual 911 data. I haven't checked up on that. It's been like a year and a half since I've been involved in that project, but I would say if maybe I can get back to you and we can post that, because I think that would be something that would be beneficial to folks. I know there are some limitations to what you can get out of it. It may play up the address a little bit. So if it happened at 123 Main Street, I'd say the 12X block of Main Street, things like that.
Right.
But yes, absolutely. I think that you're right. It is public data, and I do believe that was part of the reason for making that available to the public. I'll dig into how to access that, and then I'll send it out to you just so you can share that.
Sure. We learned early on in the series that it's very important to track all of the things that I or our guests say we'll follow up on. And so we have a team that is doing just that. So we'll make sure we post everything we say we're going to follow up on. We actually will follow up on and post. So that's really important to me. And I appreciate you looking into that, Commander. There was a question about the organizational study of the St. Paul Police Department that Commander Jack Sevier did. I think that might be more a question for me than for you, Commander, because that, unless you want to weigh in on it, but I know that had come to the council. Originally, the council had budgeted dollars for that to be done by an independent outside firm. And then it, I believe, was a project that was given to Commander Sevier. I think what happened was what often happens with reports is that they come back and it takes some time and some organization to decide what to do with them. And then COVID happened. So I think that's the short story. I, for one, had concerns about a study that was done of the police department by someone from within the police department, although I have the utmost respect for Jack Sevier. And this is nothing against him or his work, but I think it's important for us to have an independent evaluation. We did that same thing for the fire department a number of years ago, and it was really helpful. And it's important for any of that study, I think, to be really unimpeachable by anybody who might look at it. So I will say I'm interested. We now have an audit committee of the city council that I co-chair with Councilmember Jane Prince. We just restarted that committee this year. The purpose of that committee is to look into different departments and make sure that they're doing their work effectively, they're efficient, they're see if there are ways to improve the work. And I think that's a great topic for our audit committee to take up. But that's my idea and my 2 cents on that. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Commander, but.
No, I think your logic is sound, and I think the more analysis of how we're doing and what we're doing is important. Look forward to hopefully that happening, because I can tell you, sitting in my chair watching what our cops are doing, they are doing great work, and I think there are some things that if we can support them better and give them some more resources, it would be beneficial for the entire city.
You have tremendous officers, and I think, I would like for it not to be a political issue every single time that we talk about budgeting. I would like to make decisions about each department based on what that department does and what it needs, and ideally based on, again, an objective evaluation of how many police officers do we need for a city the size of St. Paul, given their workload and that kind of thing. So having that information to base decisions on would be really useful. I do want to come back to the carjacking question. We have had a number of carjackings, I think, throughout the city, and you and I were talking earlier, and you had said many of these tend to be more on the western side of town, but I know we've had a number in Ward 2. Can you talk at all about what causes these surges, what your office can do to prevent these crimes from happening? I mean, I think a lot of my questions come down to what can we do to stop them before they start? And then is there any advice you would give to residents or business owners to prevent themselves from being victimized?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a really good discussion with a couple of the robbery investigators, and I had called them after they had sent out a bulletin Saturday night with a list of 5 carjackings that had happened over the course of the 2 days prior, Friday and Saturday. And like you mentioned, they were all in the Western District. Some of them closer to us, one off of Selby and one at Selby Western. And based on their investigative work, they've really determined that there's a couple of kind of groups, I guess you would say, most of juveniles, it seems to be, and then there's also a pretty strong connection to the increase in carjackings happening in Minneapolis. They're really all working. I don't know that it's necessarily in concert, but they're all doing the same criminal behavior. So, in fact, one of the carjackings or attempt carjackings that we had on the west side, where a gentleman was shot in the leg, the gun that was used, we recovered evidence from that scene, the casing from that scene. It actually linked up to an arrest that Minneapolis PD made a couple days later. We recovered that gun, and they were able to match that forensically to the shooting. So we know yeah, we know without a doubt that those, those crimes are happening across the border. So when I was talking to Sergeant Larson and Sergeant Redding today, just getting the vast amount of information that's out of their head, I won't be able to summarize it here, but I tell you, there's a ton of work that's happening both here and in Minneapolis. I'm really impressed by the amount of time that these folks are spending. Sergeant Larson shared with me a spreadsheet that she's got with all the different case numbers and all the bad guys and all these things. And I'm pretty confident with the work that's going in there, we're going to see some arrests. I know there's a couple people that have been arrested in the past that unfortunately are out and are continuing their behavior, but that's not going to deter us from continuing to investigate the new cases that are happening and putting them back where they belong in jail. So.
And then just to the point of what people can do, I mean, have they typically been carjackings where the car was running and left unlocked? Has this been jumping car? I mean, is there anything that an individual can do to keep from being victimized?
Yeah, I actually asked that specific question. I think, really about paying attention to your surroundings. So a lot of these are people that are walking up to their car and unlocking it, and then they get approached with one or two people on foot with a gun and they demand the car. And I think it's really about paying attention to your surroundings, and you're seeing things that don't feel right. If you get that feeling in your stomach like something's not right, either call 911 and report what you're seeing, or move yourself into a situation where you're not going to become a victim if that's at all possible. As I'm talking about this too, I don't want to send the sense of every time you go to your car, you're going to be robbed, because honestly, again, we have a very safe city. And while these things are happening and they're happening at a higher rate, the reality is that thousands of people every day walk to their car and don't become a victim. So, right. But again, as far as crime prevention tips, always good to, park your car in well-lit areas, whether that's on the street or in a parking lot. Again, paying attention as you're walking up to your car, making sure that if you see something out of the ordinary, maybe go back inside to the business or your home or whatever it may be, and either call us to have us investigate, or or maybe it turns out to be nothing, which is too, but at least, do those things to protect yourself as much as you can.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. And it sounds like a lot of the work that's happening to prevent these in some ways is behind the scenes and not necessarily visible with the investigators that you were talking about, and kind of trying to solve after the fact and prevent potentially. So that's helpful. I want to turn to a couple other questions we got. One is about whether the police department has any evidence that any SPPD members or retired personnel took part in the insurrection against the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. And if so, what is the status of any investigation? I don't know. Do you know about that, Commander? I don't know.
I would be very surprised if it was the case that happened, but I am not aware of any active or retired personnel that were involved in any of that, and I'm not aware of any investigations.
I can say that I did, I don't have much more on that either. I did correspond briefly with Chief Axtell about that question shortly after the insurrection, and he had affirmed that there was no evidence whatsoever, and that if there were any, there would be a very robust investigation. So I haven't heard anything differently at this point. And then another question about anything being worked on either on my end legislatively or through SPPD to help curb the spike of catalytic converter theft. And actually, it was funny. I was going to ask this before related to carjackings, if there was anything just COVID related with many more cars potentially being parked out on the street with people working from home, if that might have anything to do with, it does seem like car related crime is up, but that's just armchair theorizing from me. But I can say from the legislative standpoint, we did pass an ordinance several months ago now banning the sale of catalytic converters that were unattached from a car, hoping that would help. My understanding is that thieves have kind of gotten around that by taking out the metals now and selling the metals without the converter. I do think there's something being worked on at the state legislature as well to this end. But anything else, Commander, that from your front?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're paying attention to. I was surprised initially we didn't have a whole lot of catalytic converter thefts in our district, but it is increasing. In fact, I've even seen some downtown recently, which surprised me just on the street. So it is something that's we're paying attention to, and again, like other crimes that we've talked about, we have found that there are some groups of folk who are out there doing this every single day. That's how they're making money. And so I know that the investigators had put together a couple of good big cases on some of these folks. In fact, some of them were carrying guns when they were doing this, and had fired rounds at owners of cars when they came out and caught them and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they would go away and shoot a round off or something. But so it's a big deal, and we continue to focus on those, and we work them like we do any of our investigations, where we're trying to identify who the bad guys are and make strong cases on them. But as far as your anecdote about the numbers, you're absolutely right. In fact, for this meeting, I did pull the number of auto thefts in Ward 2 last year. In 2020, in your ward alone, there were 370 auto thefts. And year to date, there's been about 37. And a lot of these are crimes of opportunity. I know you mentioned earlier about the having the keys in your car. We see that so often, especially in the winter months, where people leaving their cars running with the keys, and it's just that crime of opportunity that somebody can get in and drive away. So one of the things that we've really been trying to message is, please don't leave your car running. I understand it's cold outside, but at the same time, it really does present a huge problem. It's been such a big thing. We've been monitoring these auto thefts that we were having about 8 per day in the city where cars were getting stolen. So it's and that's one of those things that we try and prevent by just making sure the cars are locked and running.
And how often, when a car is, first of all, you broke up just a little bit when you said 370 thefts in 2020. Did you say 37 so far this year?
37 year to date as of last night. Yep.
Okay, so on trend to be higher than last year right now.
Yeah.
If my math is right. Do you find, I mean, when a car is stolen, do you know how often we are recovering those vehicles? I mean, do they tend to stay local and you're able to trace the plates and find them, or are they gone, driven away?
Yeah, no, most of them do get recovered. Yep. And like I said, these crimes of opportunity, really, it's that person taking the car, going from point A to point B, whether that's in our city or over to Minneapolis. And yes, a lot of them do get recovered. And a lot of times we don't have a lot of evidence to go on. Sometimes we'll be able to fingerprint the car, but in the winter time, a lot of times people are wearing gloves and there's just not evidence. But yes, we do recover a majority of them, typically, within a day or two, depending on the circumstances.
Okay. I know I've kept you over time, Commander. There's one more question that I want to get to, and then I just have one kind of wrap-up question if you have a couple more minutes, if that's okay. So the question in the chat is there an area of concentration in Ward 2 where the catalytic converters or carjacking are happening? I know you had said carjacking much more on the western side rather than in Ward 2, although I know it's happened here as well. The catalytic converters, I don't know. Do you know where they're kind of focused?
Yeah, the catalytic converter thing, unfortunately, has just kind of exploded. So it's really throughout the entire area. And there's a couple of pockets up on the north end, but as far as the rest of Ward 2, there's not any specific area. Carjackings, like you said, a lot of it is in the western district, closer to Minneapolis. We did have a couple on the west side. We haven't had any in the entire district for a short time now, which is great. But I think it really depends on the people who are perpetrating crimes and where they happen to be at the time that they're doing them. Sure.
And of course, one happening on your block is alarming enough. It doesn't matter necessarily statistically where the concentration is, but I think it's helpful to know. It's a good question. Well, I want to let you go, Commander, but my last question, which I often end with, which I forgot to, I didn't share this with you in advance, but the question is there something that you wish people knew about either your work or the St. Paul Police Department or the work of police officers in general or public safety in general that they don't know that you would like to share in closing?
I think that's a really good question. I think that I guess I would share that, for myself, and I think a lot of the police officers, especially in St. Paul, the reason that we got into this job is to help people. And, the times when I'm out, whether walking through the skyways or, again, in the neighborhoods talking to people, but when I can make connections with people and listen to their concerns and help solve their problems or bring resources to help address the concerns of their neighborhood, that's when I feel like I'm the most useful. And I would say that it's something that I think if we pay attention to some of the national news and the stories that are out there, that the reason why officers are out there doing their job sometimes gets lost. And sitting in my chair, I get to watch cops go out every single day, work really hard, and I get to read about those instances where they do help people. And it's really rewarding to watch that happen, and I know that they're out there having fun, and we are very fortunate to have what I believe is the best police force in the country. Our cops are out there doing the right thing for the right reasons, and I'm really proud of them, and I'm having a lot of fun. And Councilman Baker, before I go, I do want to also thank you for your leadership. You always have thoughtful questions when we talk, not always in these public settings, but even in private. And we talked a little bit about those lower town meetings we did, the West 7th Street community meetings, and all of your work. And I appreciate that. I think the level of engagement that you have is very, we're very fortunate to have you. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate your partnership. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Commander. I really appreciate that. Now you're definitely going to be invited back for another interview when you say things like that. So it's very, very nice of you to say, and I really appreciate you as well. This has been great, as always. I appreciate your candor, your muddling through these things together, and it's just your voice of professionalism and expertise just is really reassuring. I think someone said that in the chat, and I couldn't agree more. It's just good to hear that we have such great folks in leadership in SBPD. So thank you for that. And I do hope it's okay to have you back in future episodes, because it would be great to hear more about just what's going on with public safety in the ward as we kind of go through the year.
Absolutely. Yeah. Time flew by. I didn't realize it was an hour. So anytime you want me back, I'll be here.
All right. Thanks, Commander. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
And folks, I will be sticking around just in case there are other questions for me that don't relate to public safety. Feel free to ask them now. I also have a couple of filler pieces of information that I can share if people don't ask questions. This is always like the awkward part of the City Views for me anyway, because I'm not used to speaking live to Facebook. But if you do have questions, chat them in so I'm not just talking to myself. I want to thank people for the really active and wide-ranging chat today with Commander Ellison. I really appreciate the questions. And thank you to the folks who said thank you in the chat. This is really, these interviews are a pleasure for me to do. They're informative for me too. I learn a lot, so I'm glad that that you're getting things out of them. Just while waiting to see if folks have questions, a couple of things I do just want to let folks know about. One of them is that I have a Facebook virtual lunch coming up on February 9th, which is next Tuesday. Just a reminder, those are live chats. So I'm just on Facebook for 45 minutes from 12 to 12:45, eating my lunch and, hopefully also taking questions from you and fielding your questions. So that's just an opportunity to come onto Facebook. I'll post something that says I'm here, and then you can just post your questions and comments there. And then the chat and the thread is there for you to read going forward. So Martine, absolutely, we will make sure he gets some donuts and coffee next time. I used to do these things in person, and now it's just harder to eat together, and nobody wants to watch me just eat on the screen, I assure you. So we will have to do that. And yes, Rob, the Victoria Park soccer field is, I think, moving forward with great speed and towards construction, and I'm thrilled. And you and I haven't talked yet about the Highland Reservoir, but I know that there's a proposal for that to be turned over to Parks and Rec for a soccer development there as well. So I'm sure we'll be talking more about that too. The next City Views episode is actually going to be March 1st, so a month from today, also the 1st. And that's going to be with Kathy Hedin, who directs the Ramsey County St. Paul, City of St. Paul Public Health Department. I've been meaning to have Kathy on for a while to talk about, obviously, COVID, vaccination rates, how that's rolling out. And so she'll be here March 1st, same time, same channel, to take your questions and talk about the response to the pandemic. So I think that should be a really interesting conversation. And thank you, Justin, for the really, really kind words. I appreciate it. This is really my job and my pleasure. Let's see, I haven't gotten any more questions. So another update from me. This is something I've actually heard from a lot of you about. So at the end of last year, we created we had started conversations about what was called the COP Fund at the time, and it's now been renamed the Community First Public Safety City Council Fund. It doesn't have a great acronym, but that's its name. We renamed it so it would really more aptly describe what it's doing. It's about public safety, and it's awarding grants to St. Paul community groups and organizations that engage residents from historically under-resourced areas of the city and or areas that are disproportionately impacted by gun violence. There is a request for proposals that is live now. The deadline to apply is February 10th at 11:59 p.m. for you night owls out there who are applying to things at 11 at night. So that's something we'll post on here with the link for that, but you can also search Community First Public Safety Fund St. Paul, and I'm sure it'll come up. But for those of you who are parts of organizations that are doing work on gun violence reduction and want to apply for this grant, we're really looking for applicants to apply. And then other announcement here about Ramsey County is making land available for seasonal community use through its Summer Lands project. And I love making announcements like this on February 1st when it seems like, as I look out my window, it is the farthest thing possible from summer, but we have to start planning now. It's not that far away. So acceptable uses for the land include temporary community event spaces, temporary parks or green space, temporary art installations, and or temporary container gardens. So if you are interested in establishing any one of those things, the deadline to apply is February 28th, so you have a whole month, and projects will run from May 1st through October 31st of 2021. So that is a grant, again, through Ramsey County through the Summer Lands project. So you can start planning for summer now. And still waiting. It doesn't look like anybody has any questions for the chat, which is totally fine. I will just wrap up by reminding you then that if you did miss previous episodes of City Views, you can just kind of scroll further down in the Facebook feed and find them. And I've also started posting all of the City Views interviews on my website. So if you just search Ward 2 St. Paul, you'll come to my website, and we are uploading the videos there. So if you missed previous episodes, or if you want to watch this one again, missed the beginning and want to see it in full, for example, you can do it there. And thank you, Wajong. It's my 37th birthday today, and I am thrilled to be celebrating it by doing City Views and being with you. So thank you. All right. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, thanks everyone so much. Have a great, safe week, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.